So for those of you that I don't know, which is a few of you, my name is Rose, and I am a yoga teacher at Soul to Soul Yoga, which is in downtown Albany here in Oregon. I've got a couple of flyers of that if you want to pick one up. Uh, 1,000 hours plus of yoga training. I've had clinical supervision using yoga as a healing modality, for lack of a better term. I'm just going to shorten it to that. I also teach at Lebanon in the Lebanon community pool in the warm water where we do aqua yoga. So there's some of you yogis, aqua yogis and land yogis, and then other class. I also do a lot of stuff online, so I'm recording this for YouTube so that those that want to see it online can watch it. So I am talking to people. The subject of this talk is the chakras, especially the chakras from the yogic perspective. So chakras originate from yoga. There's a large group of texts known as the Vedas. And Veda means knowledge or wisdom or science. The Vedas are really old texts. The Rig Veda is one of the oldest texts that we know of on the planet. Or it was oral, now it's written down. And then the Vedas contain all this knowledge. The lore from it, or the history from it, is that the Vedas were written down by the rishis, or recorded, not written down because they weren't writing it down, recorded by the rishis. A rishi means a seer, through direct communication with God or creator or source and the planet, the world around them. It is said the rishis lived a long time. So they were, if I want to be irreverent, they were the guys living in caves and meditating and so on and so forth. Then from the group of texts called the Vedas, we have a commentary on the Vedas, and the commentary on the Vedas are the Upanishads. So we want to get to understand the Vedas better, which are like, this is what time you should wake up in the morning, and this is if you want to do a ceremony, this is the ceremony, the way you have to do the ceremony, and this is the day you want to do the ceremony. So it's a lot of rules and regulations. The Upanishads then are these guys, it's mostly guys, that are saying, well, wait a second, we want a little more explanation, a little more fluidity. So the Upanishads are these texts that usually begin with a question from a student and then an answer from a teacher. So it's in the Vedas that we first see the word chakra. That's where it's written out. And then there are directions about chakras. Then you get in around 500 BCE, in that area, 50 BC, that's right in that area. I don't remember. So I'm not a Buddhist anymore. But that's when you get Buddha. And so Buddhism arises, which is, come on, close. And Buddhism arises out of that. Buddhism does teach, some of the Buddhist texts teach about chakras. They teach 5 different chakras. And it's different teaching. So, I mean, similar origins. Buddhism comes from a lot of the yoga Indian philosophy. And then, so this goes on for a really long time. And then you get the first British invasion, the second being the Beatles, the first British invasion of India. And these guys, hi, come on in. The British invasion brings a lot of British culture with it, a lot of British folks. And it's out of that, then you get some writings. Madame Blavatsky, who was, the word just left my mind. The Transcendentalists. So you get some texts written from them on the chakras. You get a 1927 treatise written by Charles Ledbetter on the chakras. So you get these really simplified English person, white people, like, oh, this sounds really cool. I like this. I'm going to take this tiny piece of it. And so then that's where you're going to see the differences in the chakras from the Western perspective and the Eastern perspective. And we want to honor the origins of where things come from, which is what I like to teach, is that recognition of where these things come from, because it's really complex and really fascinating and really interesting information. And they're not wrong. What we do in the West is not wrong. It's superficial. And by superficial, I mean superficial in the sense that your skin is superficial to your muscles, or your clothing is superficial to your physical body. Not like, oh, that's superficial. Like, no. It just means it's maybe a surface level of understanding. Because honestly, you could spend the rest of your life studying the chakras and you'd have a good lot to study. So in the West, we equate the chakras to what's known as Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is not necessarily an incorrect understanding. It's just there's always more to it. And I can get complicated with you if I want to. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for those of you that don't know, and I don't know a whole bunch about Maslow, but it's basically like you have to have your basic needs, safety, security, and shelter needs to be met first. And then you can move into procreation, and then you can move into ego and asserting yourself in the world, and so on and so forth. So there is this sense of a hierarchy, a ladder. And the yogic understanding is like, yes, all of that is woven in. However, there are these other things with it. So a really good example of that Western understanding is the root chakra is red, and that it has 4 petals, and that it's all about grounding. And the sound that we use for it, the sound of the chakra, is the sound of lum. Not incorrect, but there's more to it. The Eastern understanding of it is that the root chakra, its name is Muladhara, which is means root support. So it's connection to planet Earth. It's a yellow square, and it's ruled by 2 deities, Ganesha, who a lot of people know, the elephant god, and then one of the Dakinis, who's starts with an R. I can't remember it at the moment, which, and neither here nor there, because we're not going to learn all that stuff today, because that's complicated. And then there are 4 petals, and each 4 of the petals has a vritti on it. A vritti means a fluctuation, and a fluctuation from the yogic understanding is uncomfortable. Fluctuations, the vrittis, are to be gotten rid of. We could think of what a vritti as a thought. It could be a belief. So the vrittis that have to do with the root chakra are all about being disconnected. They're fear-based. So when in yoga we do root chakra work, we're going to be doing specific poses to take specific shapes, like a mountain pose. Really easy, but it's not easy. As those of my students know, mountain pose is very complicated. You know, I can spend 15 minutes teaching that pose. And when we do it in the water, 15 minutes in mountain pose is it's a drop in the pool. 15 minutes in yoga pose and a stand on a dry land yoga class is a lot more intense. So I don't do it that long in dry yoga, but I get to take a lot of liberties in water yoga because, hey, we're in the water. It's not that challenging in the water. It is challenging, but in a different way, right? Cheryl says, if I can do it, anybody can do it. So, and before I go any further, this is the book I wrote. It's about more than the chakras, but there is a chakra section in here. And in this chakra section, I've simplified it for you so that when we get to the root chakra, instead of talking about vrittis, which is very complicated, I talk about the constrictions that might arise. And then to help you get through those constrictions, I'm giving you a hand gesture, a mudra. Come on in. I'm also giving you a sound that can be done with it, and self-inquiry questions, because questions can help us to confront our fears or our sense of lack in the world or whatever's going on. So these are the things that need to be worked through to balance the chakras so that the chakras are no longer constrictions, no longer restricting us from living our full and happy lives. So it can get super complicated. I've written it all down for you. And I've got two copies left, I think, here. And then, of course, you can buy it online. So the first chakra then is that Muladhara, that connection to the earth. And if you want, you can try a mudra to energize your earthbound connection. So a mudra, we call it a seal, not like the animal. So we're not going to be flopping around on the floor. As fun as that might be, nobody has to get on the floor and flop around and make no barking noises. Oh, you're so good at that. Well, if you want to later, we can set it up for you. You can show us. It's a seal in the sense like the way you seal an envelope. So it takes all of these energy channels in the body and brings them together at a point where they seal the energy in a specific configuration to a specific energetic end. In this case, awakening the earth element of grounding and connection. So taking light fists, extend your pinky fingers, hook your pinky fingers together, and then you're just going to lightly pull them apart, not too hard, and rest it nice and low. So just doing a practice like this helps to awaken that sense of feeling grounded. Now, if we want to awaken it further, we would use the sound of lum, which when I'm saying it, you're hearing L-U-M. It is written L-A-M, but we pronounce it. It's not a lamb. No one's going on the lamb. It's lum. And we emphasize the consonant sound because that's where all the energy is. So you want to try it with me? Yes. You're going to try it with me. How about that? Taking a deep breath in. So if you're someone who needs more grounding, more connection, more stability in your life, just doing this on a regular basis would support you. Now you can take in that like, oh yeah, I'm going to wear that. I'm going to connect with that yellow square. Or if you want to do, it's got vermilion petals. So if you want to wear red, wear red. No one's telling you not to do that. I'm not telling you not to do that. So second chakra is located in this area in the body. The first one is right down at the base of the spine. We tend to think of them in the front of the body because that's how they're pictured. But technically, they're right in front of the spine. So it's this whole area of the body. Associated with it is that element of water, which makes sense, right? If you think about what have you got here, some of you have a full sack of water. Right? Some of you emptied your sack of water before you started. But this is that sense where healthy sexuality is, where healthy sensuality. And I'm not talking like quality make, but like the accent thing, feeling sensation, feeling your feelings, which so many of us, right? It's not okay to feel feelings. We're told that they're inappropriate or wrong. You shouldn't be feeling that. But also just that ability to feel that you're feeling disconnected. That's a real second chakra issue. The name of the second chakra is Svadhisthana. Svadhisthana means one's own home. And this is the center of gravity. It's slightly different depending on your height and your shape and your gender or your physical sex, just because the pelvis is different, right? But it's all dependent on your physical structure as to where your center of gravity is. But it's always going to fall between the navel and the pubic bone region. So when we're talking physical issues, we tend to do a lot of work in the second chakra region. with the hips and the low back and the sacrum and the SI joints. The simple mudra then to activate and awaken that energy up. We've come from this. We're going to pull that pinky finger back in, ring finger, and your ring finger doesn't extend. That's your anatomy. You can't fix that. Don't even try. Hooking ring fingers together. And then that sits right down low. The sound here is the sound of VUM with a V. So let's try that. VUM. You want to put the P on the end of it? Yeah, choose VUM. Or V. Yeah, that's okay. No, good. Feel free to ask me questions. And the shape, the image, so we associate it with the color orange with it. And the traditional understanding, it's a crescent moon, and the color is a light blue. Yeah, right? What? No, not yellow, not orange. Yeah. So that's that second chakra region. If we're doing stuff to kind of move energy through that region because it can get stuck, then we're doing lots of hip openers. Maybe feet are together, knees are open when we're sitting down. Not necessarily this while I'm standing. But I'm not gonna get on the floor and do that. So then we move up to this third chakra region. We call this Manipura, which means the land of lustrous gems. That's my favorite one to talk about, just because the land of lustrous gems. What are the gems? Well, the gems, this is all about related to our sense of self-worth and putting ourselves forward in the world, as opposed to I'm not worthy, and not Wayne's World, I'm not worthy, but like, oh no, I'm not going to share with you what I'm doing in the world. No. And it's also that place where we take from each other. Like when somebody says something not nice, you feel like, oof, right? It's that gut punch. And in the West, we associate it with yellow. In yoga, it's red. And there's a triangle. Red with a triangle. So the mudra is everybody's favorite mudra, except we're going to hook those fingers together. So that ring finger curls back in, and then the naughty finger comes out, and we hook the fingers together. The naughty finger. In this culture, it's the naughty finger. So you're hooking it together right in front of that solar plexus region. You want to make sure that there's space between the mudra and your body, so we're not kind of pulling it in. And the sound here, some of you are really going to like this, especially with your hot toddies and your eggnog. Rum. Again, it's spelled R-A-M, but we don't say ram in Sanskrit. We say rum. So, and we emphasize that R sound. So let's try it. So we might be using this when we're feeling a lot of fear around our self-worth, or fear of people hurting us, or we're just fearful. You might also be doing third chakra region. There's a lot of abdominal organs here. So this is abdominal organ region. Some of them need help. Kidneys are there. Adrenals are there in that same region. Because remember, it's this whole area, not this whole area. And then we take it up to the heart. And the heart is anahata, which means the unstruck sound. So it's the sound that always is, but it's unstruck. And the shape associated with it is a downward triangle and an upward triangle upward triangle and a downward triangle at the same time. So we some of us know that as the Star of David. It's got a specific name that I cannot remember right now. It's all right. I don't do notes. I just don't do notes. So I could have written those things down. I did not. It's like a grayish green color. And of course, this is our love, compassion, self-love, self-compassion, forgiveness center. So when we're not, lungs are associated, heart, thymus glands, right? All of that stuff going on. When we're full of grief, that's a lot of that sense of separation that's going on here. So some people, when they're overly experiencing grief in life, I've worked with people like this. Anytime we do heart chakra work, they cough. Cough? Because it's touching, it's getting into that region of like, oh, here comes all that stuff that I may or may not be trying not to feel. I don't want to feel that, right? Crying in public, which it's just like, you're not supposed to do that. Okay. I don't know who wrote that down, but okay. Especially ugly crying. Yeah. 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 Well, oh, in the West, it's green, and it's gray green color, like a pretty grayish green color. So here, from this mudra, we go to what's called kapota, which means dove. So the palms are in a prayer position, and then we pull the palms away from each other, right in front of the heart. If it works for your wrists, the thumbs can dip into the chest. Some of our wrists don't move that way because that's how anatomically you were put together. So don't force it if they don't do that. The sound here is yum. We all love that sound. Yes, yum. Yeah. So you think about when you say that, yum, where's the yum sauce? Again, spelled Y-A-M. And let's try that with emphasis on the Y. Yum. So I'll tell you a funny story about that, right? Spelled Y-A-M. So the night before my uncle has to have surgery on his intestines, we all went out to dinner at a Japanese like noodle house kind of place, and we were standing in line to make our order. And I'm reading the menu, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, they have yum noodles? Are those like hard chakra noodles? What is that?" I was like, "Wow, this sounds like, what is that?" So I look at my uncle and I say, "What are yum noodles?" And he's like, "What?" I said, "What are yum noodles? Like for the heart?" And he looks at me and he goes, "You mean yam noodles?" I was like, I guess I'm so into this, I can't even see the English word anymore. But if we want yam noodles for our heart chakra, you can have yam noodles for your heart chakra. It does sound yummy, doesn't it? Well done. Bravo. Yoga humor. So from the heart, then we move up to our throat chakra. And our throat chakra is Vishuddha, and which means purity. So it's this sense of purification. And it's often associated, like when we talk about it in the West, we talk about the throat chakra as related to your voice, communication, and hearing things properly. We talk about it in like chakra therapy from yoga philosophy. This is about knowing your path in life, your true path in life. So it's a pretty significant chakra. For me, I feel like not knowing that and understanding that when it's in relation to the throat chakra is a pretty big letdown. Like when I discovered that, I was like, oh, wow, because there's a refinement process happening. We're going from the gross, as in the big tangible, to the very subtle. And knowing your path, knowing your dharma, the work that you're here to do in the world, not the 4-letter word work, but like the big work. What are you here to share? What are you here to clear? What path are you walking in this lifetime? That's throat chakra work, not higher. It's this chakra work. So when we come, and the color is blue and light blue. So it's pretty universal here. This is also each of the petals. There's 16 petals. Each of the petals, right? Plus, yes, 16 petals, 12 petals here. 16 petals. Each of the petals is one of the vowels of Sanskrit. So there are 16 vowels in Sanskrit. I'm not going to teach you Sanskrit today. That's a lot. Yeah, I could teach you your alphabet. That's all I could teach you. And I could only teach you how to chant your alphabet. So each of the petals is a vowel sound, which is just interesting. So from this dove mudra, the flower blossoms and opens. So these are flower petals. This is called lotus mudra. And again, you're hovering in front of the throat. And the sound is hum, not ham, right? You can have your yam noodles and ham, and you'd be really working chakra and throat, your heart and your throat. So it's a very aspirated at the back of the throat. Kind of not the way we speak in this culture, but there are a number of cultures that really aspirate the H. So let's take a deep breath in. And then as we move up, we come to our third eye. And this is clarity, clear vision, intuition, and one of my favorites, knowing better. Knowing better. Right? We might enjoy the yam noodles and ham every day, but we also know better that that might not be, you got to have some green veggies in there, right? So knowing better. Like, oh, I really enjoy this, but I know better. The image here is, it's 2 petals and a certain, like a full moon, I think. I can't remember. Right. Doesn't matter. It's out there somewhere. So this is that sense we're really starting to clarify, really starting to come together, really starting to see things as they are for ourselves. So it's not projected outwards, right? The third eye opening, all of that, that's projected inwards so that we can really see and know ourselves internally and understand what's going on. So this is a more complicated mudra, not that complicated, but it's called Kali mudra. So you're going to interlace your fingers so that your right thumb is on top. I'm just turning it this way so you can see. You're going to be looking at it. You're going to extend your index fingers, and then you're going to open the palms of the hands away from each other just a little bit, like you've got something between your hands. And then it comes right in front of your forehead. If you can, you turn the fingers out. Again, your wrists, if they don't do that, please don't force them. And here, the sound that we use is the sound of Om. Taking a deep breath in. So for this last mudra, you keep your hands in that position. I'm gonna teach it backwards. We'll do the sound first, and then I'll tell you about it. Just take that mudra and hover it over your head. You don't want to touch your head. You're hovering over. Too much for your shoulders? Just drop it down in front of you. The sound is NG, like at the back end of the word gong or ring. So taking a deep breath in. And then you can release your arms. So this is Sahasrara. I forgot to tell you, this is Ajna, and it means command. This is Sahasrara. It is the 1,000th petaled lotus. And it's that God connection. Or heaven, I mean, whatever words you want to use to describe whatever that is. Creator, eternal cosmic vibration, whatever that word means for you. So it's that connection there. A lot of people want to come right up to this. Oh, well, if I just go there, it'll take care of everything. That's lovely. That's a wonderful thought. I wish you luck. If everything else is not in order, this is not going to happen. And what will happen, and I've seen it again and again and again, it becomes infused with ego and it becomes very yucky when it becomes infused with ego. I'm just checking my time. So we have these 7 chakras. Now I'm going to tell you this right now. All you need, I mean, you can do more, but all you really need is those 7 sounds, those 6 mudras, because we really only did 6 of them. We did one twice in 2 different places, to kind of work with your own chakras every day. You can go get a chakra alignment, realignment, attunement, all of that. Those are kind of buzzwords. Or you can do it yourself, for yourself, on a daily basis. It's a lot less expensive. Right? But, if that's how you want to spend your money, I'm happy to receive it. Happy to take it. Do the necklaces work? I mean, it depends on what you believe in, right? I mean, belief is so much. I mean, the placebo effect is more than 50% effective, which means I could just tell you something works and you're like, sweet, excellent, that worked for me. Right? If you have a connection with somebody and they tell you it's going to work, then it works. Right? Here, hold this feather and you too can fly. Right? Like Dumbo. Well, see, you don't believe, and that's the problem. Not today. There we go. You keep trying. One day. So these are the 7 chakras. Now, why are they there? What's really going on there? So the yogic philosophy teaching is there's something called Kundalini, or serpent power. And this is a serpent that's coiled around the base of your spine 7 times. As you do things like yoga, meditation, that serpent kind of like wakes up and it starts to move. Now, Kundalini yoga, Hatha yoga is the forceful awakening of that serpent energy. So when that starts moving up, if we're not working on balance, clarity, doing our practices, and most importantly, doing the yoga poses, because there is something important about the shapes that we're taking when we do those poses. When that energy starts moving, it'll move. It's painful. It causes a lot of spiritual and potentially physical pain. I knew somebody once who he worked with a teacher, the same teacher that I worked with, and he could barely walk from a Kundalini experience that he had had. So when that energy moves and awakens, it is really, really intense. So I asked my teacher, Rama, one day, I said, well, like, I don't want to be like a raw nerve walking everywhere. Why are we doing all these practices that are in the text? And she said, look, that's to force it through. But if you're doing yoga, that energy is going to move anyway. But it'll move softer and quieter because you're ready for it to move. So a really good example of that energy movement and what can happen is substance abuse. So this is a yogic philosophy understanding, not a Western understanding whatsoever. right? Big difference is that substance, using a substance, we use it to have that God consciousness, because that's what's at the end of the rainbow. Literally in the Western, right? If we go all the colors in the Western. But if we use substances to know that God consciousness, to awaken that God consciousness, then we have that God consciousness prematurely, and physically we cannot sustain that if our bodies are not ready for it. And so, as I was taught, that is what the yoga poses are for. It's because the yoga poses sustain your body to have these intense awakenings, and you're not, over feeling everything and out of control. Instead, you have these awakenings and you're ready and you can hold it and you're clear and you can have a conversation with somebody and you can move around in the world and it doesn't become a constriction. So it's based on this belief that we're all seeking that God conscious awakening connection. We're all seeking that enlightenment, whatever word you're looking for. And some of us are trying to find it in different ways. The paths are many, the destination is one. So that might be the summation for what I have to say to you. Paths are many, the destination is one. We're all going to the same place, and we're all going to use different paths. Which one is right? Well, that's where intuition and inner knowing come in handy, because you'll know, well, this works for me, and well, that was some interesting information. Thanks, Rose, but that's not going to work for me. Or, oh my gosh, this sounds like what I'm looking for. I want to know more about it. So, questions. And I'm going to repeat your questions because I'm recording and I'm mic'd up to that thing. Questions or comments? Oh yeah, the color for the brow point is purple. You will see it indigo in places, but purple. And then for the crown is white. Yes, knowing better. You know better. I like that. You know better, Chakra. Yeah. Yeah. She always knows better. Any other questions about anything yoga? So you can come do yoga with me. I've got 2 places I'm doing yoga physically. I call it land yoga. Never thought I would call it land yoga, but because I teach yoga in the water, it's land yoga. So you can come do water yoga with me in Lebanon at the Lebanon Community Pool, 92 degrees. So I got some land yoga, our water yogis in the building. So if you have questions about what it's like to do, it was just an opportunity that arose for me when I first moved, and I was like, well, I want to be teaching. And within like a week of teaching aqua yoga, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing ever. So the class is more like a yoga therapy in the water. I don't often talk about chakras, if at all, because that's not what people want in that class. I'm not there to, it's not my agenda. I don't have an agenda as a teacher other than to hold space for who I'm working with. So whatever you need is what we're going to do. And whatever language you speak, which we'll suss out, that's what I'm going to teach for you. So at the pool, it's always God. At the yoga studio, where I teach twice a week, it's many words. Eternal cosmic vibration is my personal favorite word or as I like to say, my favorite piddly human word to describe the undescribable. Because how could I know? Right? I mean, I could. I just might have told you that there's a pathway for that. But if I knew, I'm not supposed to tell you. So if you want, I should have brought cards for the pool, but that's all right. If you want to do land yoga with me at Monday and Wednesday, 5:30 to 6:30 in downtown Albany. I've got these cards for special deal if you've never been there. And then if you really, and I mean if you really want to do delve into the chakras, I'm doing a chakra retreat on the coast in Yaha. It's at the end of the month. So I've got some information on that. It's 4 days and 3 nights, and it's a residential. And when I say on the coast, like we're on the beach. So I've got these for you. And then if you want more from me, I have a little email list sign up that you can sign up if you want. So, but any other questions? Yes, Lebanon Community Pool. So LebanonPool.org. Yeah, you can also we've got a booth here. So you can come see me at the Soul to Soul yoga booth. And yes, yeah, 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 for sure. No questions, no comments, no nothing. Are we full? Was that a lot? We had enough yam noodles and ham. Oh, so the great question. How would a person know if they had a Kundalini experience? It's intense, very intense. So yeah, it can be associated. I mean, you can have physical issues associated with it. You can have emotional disturbances, auditory disturbances. It's big. It's not a small thing. It's a big thing. I mean, I am not a clinician in any way, shape, or form, but it might be a word that a word we might use to describe it in this culture might be a psychotic break, right? Might be. We might, I mean, you know, it might also be, well, that person had a stroke. So you can't, I mean, first of all, always go to see a professional. Number one, always go see a professional. So I do a lot of yoga therapy. I do yoga therapy. And so in some cases, I'm actively working in conjunction with doctors. So I have worked in conjunction with chiropractors. I have worked in conjunction with medical doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists that are treating somebody for an issue, and they're coming to me, and I'm not negating anything because both can be true at the same time. Many things can be true at the same time. And what I bring to bear is the supportive practices, which are usually, I mean, as a teacher, I do lots of grounding, lots of stabilization stuff, because that's what most people need these days. I'm not, there's lots of practices where you can do this awakening of big energy. I'm just not seeing that we need that. The world has become a much more intense place where we need a lot more fortitude and grounding and support and care for ourselves. And, wild yoga practices, while they have their place, that's rarely do I teach them in a class. I might teach, we've done some energizing practices in the water, some energizing breathing practices in the water when it's been appropriate, but we're also like, I mean, when you're in the water, you've got this intense warm water, an intense stimulation of the parasympathetic nervous system. So I'm like, I'm not too worried about it because there's this warm water, and then they get out and they're taking a hot shower, and there's, it's a whole process. I'm not worried about, sparking too much energy because the actual environment is keeping a lot of that energy down. Whereas sparking too much energy for some people, and then they, walk out of the yoga studio and get in a car and go, that's, there's not enough recovery time, I think, in a lot of cases. And then I teach in the evening. Got no business teaching super energizing practices at 6 o'clock at night. Unless we're staying up for a lunar eclipse or something, right? No, I'm not doing that. Yeah. Yeah. But you will, I mean, I do have them, and they are on YouTube where anything else? Me at the booth. Basically, I'll ask you a couple of questions. I'll give you a mudra or a breathing practice. But yeah, you know a bunch of mudras yourself, so you don't even have to come see me. But if you want, you can. Thank you so much. Yeah. Let me turn this off.